been one of those weeks. And by the way, no judgment. I don't want to hear anyone saying, "Oh, why are you drinking that stuff?" This is poison. This is all poison. There's just some that taste different than others and have different effects. But yeah, gonna have a little bit of this. How y'all doing? It has been a bit of a week over here on in the underground anime colony that is the Weekly Dig. Honestly, not too terrible. But one second, my tea is ready. How y'all doing? What's new in the anime world? I'm committing the cardinal sin. Sorry, just saying I'm committing the cardinal sin. I start a stream and then immediately walk away. But, no, unfortunately, I'm in a more northerly part of Virginia, and so we are still under lockdown for the next few weeks, which I'm fine with, however long it takes. I do not, I'm not going crazy here. I'm a quiet solo otaku over here. I love being at home, but maybe a little more than that. It is definitely, it's definitely been a bit of a week. I had some stuff build up at work and ended up working till 11:30 on Thursday to get stuff done, and then full 8 hours on Friday getting stuff done, and I still have work to do this weekend, which is not the worst job in the world. I mean, I don't mean to sit here and complain. There are lots of folks who are working crazy hours, but one of those weeks where all of a sudden things just kind of got a little bit out of hand, and it's just stuff's piling up. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, things are going pretty smoothly. A lot of stuff going on behind me that you can probably see or tell, or wondering kind of what's going on there. They seem a little bit out of focus. Maybe it wants me to be a little. Let me tweak the camera a little bit. Right behind me there and I think I got the autofocus. I tried to autofocus weirdly. Okay. Come on. Focus. This is me. Focus on me. Focus on. There we go. I think I may have to manual focus again. So these are the mini whiteboards that I mentioned. I finally stained them the other day, so that looks pretty nice, I gotta admit. Some of them turn out better than others. The wood on this is just kind of a weird set of light and dark, but actually it's kind of a neat effect there. Some of the laser engraving was thinner than others, so you get some of this interesting effect here where it's just not very pronounced, but not too bad. So turned out pretty well. So those are drying up there. And you may notice the tool rack is gone. It has disappeared into emptiness. I actually stained it today, so it should be actually a bit darker than that. Basically the same color as the bookcases, so that's cool. Jay, finished your anime backlog. That is awesome. Congratulations. Matt, rewatching Monster in English dub. Interesting. I'm curious to see your thoughts on the differences there. But yeah, yeah, Monster is perhaps not the ideal show for most people for during COVID-19. It's awesome that you're watching it, but definitely relevant in some ways. Oh, and then 40, watching the first 5 minutes Gundam Origin episodes. Cool. The five zombie films do ever find out about their mothers? Good question. I don't think so. I don't think I've ever seen anything about the Zabi mother, the mother of the Zabi family. Interesting. I wonder if that's a plot point that they've kept under wraps intentionally, or was just something where they were like, we're just not going to go into it. I don't think even in the novel. I'm actually working or planning on a review of the novel, which I think I have around here somewhere. It'll be science fiction. So it'll be down here. Um, so this is the um, Gundam novelization or novelizations, Awakening, Escalation, and Confrontation, which was the novelization that Tomino wrote of his version of how he wanted original Gundam to go. And so some of the stuff you see in Gundam the Origin, I think, first featured here, but this goes completely off the rails. So the ending of this is nothing like original story. It's a good, interesting, yeah. Different mothers. Yeah. Forgetting the father's name. He does come across as something of a lech, so it wouldn't surprise me too much. Yeah, Gundam the Origin is really cool. For example, Gundam Watch Through, very, very nice. Be aware, Gundam the Origin is very much sort of backstory, filling in details from original Gundam. It's more Gundam fans asking, why did, how did this work in various characters' backstories, as opposed to like a true prologue in the sense of setting up a lot of other stuff. The first episode is more sort of, the first two episodes, I guess, are more sort of world prologue, but the rest of it is more, I want to know more about this character's backstory. So, Degwin, there we go. What do you think saved Shoujo? I don't know that Shoujo was ever saved. It never needs saving? It's been like Doslins and Garma seem close. True. It helped to explain why that family feels so weird. They just had a very complicated relationship growing up. Multiple mothers. Maybe the mother died. Maybe the mother was divorced, something like that. And having multiple kids from multiple mothers with the same father would certainly make things complicated. Not necessarily bad, just would make those relationships in a very powerful family rather strained. Yeah, I think JJ's right. Like most things are saved by making a lot of it and seeing what sticks. I was just watching a GDC talk, Game Developer Conference, about a group of guys who bought the source code for an Android slot machine game and just started making variants on it. And when I say variant, I mean just changing the title and the image and uploading that to Google Play. And just doing a whole bunch of them to kind of see what happened. And they ended up making 1,500 slot machine games on Google Play. With just, 3D dolphin slot machine, 3D, Falkland Islands slot machines, etc. and so forth. They just made them over and over and over and over. And it was just, quantity over quality. And they made a lot of money, as it turned out. This wasn't a business plan, it was an experiment. And they're like, actually, this brought in, significant amounts of cash. Not enough to, survive on. But it was interesting how just, casting the net incredibly wide, sure enough, got in enough money from here and there to be significant. Zaki-kun, cool. Very nice. I'll be honest, I have watched no anime that I can think of in the last week. Last couple of weeks, I've just been not in an anime mood recently, which feels weird to admit on the stream on an anime channel. But I just haven't been there mentally. Shoujo seems to be dying off with too many because I think the quality works a lot. I don't know. I can't say, Jay, that I've seen a significant drop off in shoujo quality or in quantity even. There's still shoujo series being made, and they still seem to be doing well. Let's look at, oh boy, 2019 in anime. see here. Shame they don't really list titles or genres. But I mean, they had there's that fashion anime from this season. Um, let's see here. Love is War. That's more seinen. Um, I don't know. Just I feel like there are romances about. But it's never shoujo's never been a really huge Fruits Basket, certainly pretty big, I would say. Yeah, shoujo's never been like a massive element of the industry. I feel playing a few more games this weekend. Legends of Pirates Online, Civ 5, Civ 6, Sequel 11. Cool. I've been playing a lot of Animal Crossing, I will admit. Kind of got frustrated with it today, actually, because I realized I got myself kind of trapped in the loop, the reward loop of that game, where, oh, I can do a little bit of this, and that means I get a little more of that, which means I get a little more of this reward, and just, very much the mobile game loop. Not that it's a mobile game, but, I mean, most of them were. Um, but, those mechanics were definitely caught me up. So trying to avoid that. Um, yep, I'm. Well, the weird thing is, I'm not animated out. Like, I didn't go through a phase where I was watching tons and tons of anime. I was just, slow. What do you think it would take for Double Zeta and Victory Gundam to receive a dub? Um, I mean, the obvious answer there is high sales of the Gundam series. Really, Right Stuff is, um, putting as much money as makes sense into releasing these titles. They really picked up Gundam because they believe in it, and those are people who understand that fandom, and I think, um, I think if for example Turn A had really big sales, then that would have driven production of dubs for Double Zeta and Victory. Um, um, you probably need to see more of a sale of Universal Century stuff as well. So that stuff would have to have a really big sales spike to deserve a dub. Um, Gundam has always or traditionally been a franchise in America where the stuff that shows up on television gets a dub and the rest of it just doesn't. It just kind of doesn't warrant a dub. It's such a big franchise and its fan base is relatively small enough that dubs just don't make sense for everything. So that's kind of what you have to do. I'm not going to get to the question of what they deserve or don't deserve. I don't. Yeah, deserve. I think is a very big word when it comes to anime. Doesn't see Destiny Remastered. I'm not having Eddie as Kira and Othrin. So I was actually in the panel when they announced this. As it turns out, this is at Otakon 2 years ago, I think. When Right Stuff came out and announced they were doing the dubs for Seed and Seed Destiny Remaster, and they explained they don't have the rights to those dubs, to the original dubs. They cannot, if they want to release those dubs, if they want to release those anime dubbed, they can't do it without recasting and redoing it entirely. The Seed and Seed Destiny were all done in Canada by that whole crew, and so they just had to say, hey, Seed and Seed Destiny are popular enough that we'll make that happen. It was actually in that panel where the idea came up in Bandai. Well, they said they would look into it. Of Bandai can include multiple dubs on there by essentially making that happen. But Right Stuff doesn't own the original Canadian dub of Gundam Seed or Seed Destiny, so that makes things weird. Um, Trials of Mana. I tried Trials of Mana and it kicked my tail. That first fight just destroyed me, and I kind of put down that game. Too hard for me, sadly. Finished Billy Bat. Interesting. I've heard of Billy Bat, but never gotten into it. Um, well, I would say the reason why not Double Zeta is because Double Zeta has never been as popular as Zeta. You know, Zeta is widely considered to be a masterpiece. Double Zeta is not. I don't share that opinion, but I think the reason is, you know, popularity, right? Yeah, I've got a big old stack of manga to get through in the other room, which I will probably get to at some point. I think part of the reason I've been sort of slow on stuff is just trying to get through other projects like this wood burning and all this other kind of stuff. I have a stack of wood I've been trying to get through, as you can see back there. So hopefully once those are done, I'll feel more mental space to get back into anime. I'll probably end up binging and watching a bunch of stuff. I have a whole bunch of anime. You know, Ezoken, I'm like 2/3 of the way through. A bunch of other things I really like to finish out, but just haven't been there. Haven't been ready for it. But I do think this week the COVID-19 thing, in addition to all the work that I've had to do, or the increased amount of work, not massive amounts, but you know, quite a lot of work. I think also being at home isolated hasn't helped with that a little bit. So, I think Persona 5 Royal Edition, cool. And don't get me wrong, Animal Crossing is still a lot of fun. I am thoroughly enjoying it. But it does a masterful job of encouraging you to stay in the game, you know, getting these little rewards over and over again. So today was a day when I realized, oh, I'm sucked in. I need to break myself out of those loops and just enjoy the game in a different context and not be like, ooh, yeah, I got to stop by now to pick up that thing so I can do the other thing, right? That will drive you crazy. Yeah, Persona 5 Royal is definitely on my wish list, but I mean, the length of that game kind of scares me off, to be honest. Yeah, I don't think the anime is the way in, unfortunately, on Persona. I'm glad to hear that, Jay. Nice when that works. And I will also say my job is going well. Good feedback. You know, people seem to like what I do. So at least that got that going for me. And I don't want to complain. I have a job. I did see a thing today, and I do want to. I don't know if this is worth bringing up. No, it's negative. Let's not go there. Let's try to not get, you know. Let's try to stay positive and upbeat and so forth. Like Lucky Star. Is Legend of the Galactic Heroes worth watching? Is anything worth watching? It depends. Depends on many things. It depends on what you like. I have friends who cannot get into anime that I think are masterpieces, because it's just not their kind of thing. Legend of the Galactic Heroes is certainly a classic of in the Japanese fandom. It is very well known and well respected, and I think influential. And I think the original novels are influential in the sense of kind of slow space opera. I think it sort of kicked off that trend in Japanese science fiction. So I think it's important in that sense. Over in the Discord, AS and I have been collaborating on a list of sort of an anime canon. You know, what's the anime you should see, which I think I mentioned earlier. And to be clear, this is not, you know, you're a bad person for not watching this, but it's you know, if you want that basic literacy of the stuff that the kids are talking about, or the stuff that older fans are talking about, here's kind of a starting point, a starting list. And the interesting thing is how we've had to split that out into multiple different lists. You know, there's no one list that's kind of useful in all contexts. There's the anime that's hit big in America, both modern fans and sort of for more classic fans. So to understand what folks are talking about sort of on the internet now, you'd want to watch Attack on Titan. Whereas, say, Ghost in the Shell is something that folks aren't really talking about too much right now, except for the more recent stuff, like the original Ghost in the Shell movie. Like, modern anime fans aren't really, talking a lot about that movie, but that movie does come up a lot in, like, at conventions, at convention panels, things like that. Legend of the Galactic Heroes is something that is big if you want the context for, like, Japanese fandom. It's not really talked about much over here, but definitely a big thing over in Japan. Okay, yeah, that's not a bad idea. Maybe start Legend of Galactic Heroes with the novels, get a sense of the kind of story and the pacing and so forth, and then if that appeals, you can go there. Hey, Ginger, good to see you. Can you think of any anime TV series I enjoyed that received one season of a dub and not continue the next with a dub? I can. Kodocha. Absolutely. It happens. It's certainly rare. You're absolutely right, and man, that it's rare. But also, I don't think the rationale behind a dub is most of the time it's what is the likelihood this will end up on television, and or what is the likelihood that this will sell to dub fans, right? It's not really about the first season could be reasonably popular, but if the second season isn't popular, it's not going to get the dub. How much would Right Stuff lose in doubling Double Zeta and Victory Gundam? Hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably. Dubbing's expensive. And there's a lot of franchises where I actually recommend folks go back to the original source material. Not to say don't watch the anime, but to say the original source material is probably an effective and sort of lower, maybe lower intensity starting point, where you can get a novel and get a good amount of plot out of a novel in a fairly short amount of time. Whereas an anime series may take a long time to kind of get there, right? An hour of reading will get you through a lot of plot where 2 episodes of an anime series may get nowhere. Boogie Pop, I think, is a good example of that. If you want to get into Boogie Pop, the novels are in English and some of them, and so you can get a really good feel for that franchise that way. That kind of stuff. Strange almost all VC is dubbed except for Double Zeta and V. Well, and the reason for that is just accretion, right? They dubbed Wing because it was going on television. They dubbed Original Gundam because it was going on television, and they assumed that would be a huge hit, and then they dub everything else and release it on television, and that did not happen at all. So they just dubbed in piecemeal whatever they could convince Toonami to show, and so we got 8MS Team and Seed and so forth, 0083 and such. But there's no dub of X, is there? There's no dub of Turn A, right? I count Turn A as being basically UC. Right, but again, to be clear, it wasn't a plan though, right? They didn't go in and say, let's snub these 2 series. They came in and said, let's dub these, to start, to begin the road to success, and then it didn't succeed, and so they just dubbed the stuff that they thought they could kind of get away with and so forth, and they just kind of gone through one after the other. Double Zeta and Victory have never been, the shows that the fans have been asking for. Lest we forget, when Zeta first came over to America, there was no English dub. They did not dub, if I recall correctly. I may be wrong on that one. I have to go back and check. But I think that original like $500 Zeta Gundam box set was sub only. But again, I may be wrong on that. Again, and man, they're not snubbing Double Zeta and Victory. It's not snubbing. It is the opposite of that. They are just, they're just the last ones to get to. They're the least. They're the least important. They're the least asked for, right? It's not that they don't want to dub them. It's that Zeta Gundam and Seed are way bigger deals than Victory Gundam is, right? And so they're not going to prioritize Double Zeta over Seed when Seed's going to make more money. That's it's the classic thing. They're going in order of expected profit, not in order of release date, right? Yeah. And Double Zeta has some great moments, but it's not a mess team. It doesn't hold together the way other Gundam series does. There are fan subs. Are there fan dubs? Oh, definitely, yeah. Fan dubs exist, yeah, out there. I have some. I know some folks who've done some of that. I actually helped make a little fan dub of an anime short once, and tried to put it up, and that didn't work out. Tournay is well received now. It was a flop when it came out. People were very confused by Tournay. The Japanese fans, they did not like Tournay when it came out, and it was not well received. It has recovered in recent years, partly through sales of the model kits. Sid Mead's designs have held up, but those were also controversial. I mean, folks weren't too crazy about the Tournay designs when they came out. Some folks liked them, some folks really didn't. They were a dramatic departure from traditional Gundam designs. So Tournay had a really rocky start for a while, and again, it's felt better, but it's still, I would say it's on shaky ground, or it doesn't have the reputation that some of these others do. Yeah, fandoms are a lot of fun. They really let you play around with the tone of a series, with kind of imagining what we like to do those things. The problem is it's work. You also get the difficulty, as you can imagine, that fans are not professional voice actors, and so even if they can be skilled, they're not always available, right? They're not showing up for 4 hours a day to work on this thing. So you don't get the consistency of releases and that kind of stuff that you get from a dub. And equipment, right? Equipment varies dramatically from person to person, so that's tough. Well, those are Tournay reviews from Americans, and from relatively recent Americans. And online reviews and YouTube reviews are not necessarily representative of the fan base. Unfortunately. Yeah. And you can do great stuff with standard quality. You don't need professional quality equipment necessarily to make it sound perfect, especially for fan dubs, right? It doesn't have to be great, but oh yeah, well, and then you have that. I mean, COVID-19 is a whole other wrinkle on that, right? That's a factor that is a whole other thing. I had to order a replacement Amazon Echo, and it's going to take over a week to arrive. It's like, man, like an Amazon product is taking over a week to arrive. That's serious supply line issues. Cannot imagine. Crazy. watched Ride the Wave. I don't think I've seen that one. I mean, Misaki Iwasa is releasing like a new anime every 2 weeks, it seems. There we go. Yeah, another one I definitely want to look into. Saw the trailer for it. I'm intrigued. Back to his water theme from Lou. Yuasa's definitely building a filmography now, like an analyzable filmography. I'll be looking forward when COVID kind of calms down and conventions come back up to see all the panels about Yuasa's work. Now that there's, used to be, okay, you could talk about Mind Game and Kaiba, but now there's just, there's enough stuff that you can draw lots of comparisons and such. Wouldn't mind actually doing that myself. Because Masaki Yuasa stuff is distinctive. And obviously he's farming out a lot of the work, right? He's not very, I'm sure he's not working hugely closely on all of these productions. And he's doing like a movie every year. Yeah. Yeah, and this is the downside of centralizing manufacturing in one country and relatively few companies in China doing a lot of that manufacturing. Like, it makes sense, right? People weren't dumb for going in that direction, but when emergencies hit, that's what happens in emergencies, is that supply lines get a lot more complicated. Oh, nice. Dumbbells. Dumbbells is a fun series. Dumbbells is just, what you see in episode 1 is exactly what you get all the way through. Just really fun exercising advice, weightlifting advice rather, and some exercising as well. Cute characters, self-aware, and absolutely Ginger, very motivational. Like I've actually been doing some workout stuff ever since Dumbbells came out, mainly because of that. There are no plans for continued dub of Boruto. Interesting. Wow. I'm actually surprised by that. I suspect that's more COVID-19-ish. I'm not sure. COVID-19 factored into that decision. I wonder if they'll go back and start dubbing it again later. If popularity changes, who knows? Oh, as of October 2019. Interesting. There we go. Yeah, Dumbbells is just fun. Just fun, and the parody stuff is the parody elements. Find the what I love about the parody in Dumbbells is that it matches the series, right? They're not they're parodying, heavily muscled action stars and things like that, which makes sense for a show about weightlifting. And then that weightlifting stuff or that parody stuff is in there just enough to be entertaining, but not enough to take over the show, not enough to detract from the show itself, which is really helpful. Yeah. I'm never gonna watch all the anime I want to watch. That is reality. And the flexing, yes. And don't skip the dub. The dub does a really good job of referencing and talking about how silly things are, and the dub sometimes weaves in stuff that the sub leaves that isn't explained in the sub because you would understand that reference, but they kind of throw in those references into the English dubs. You kind of understand why they're joking about that, which is helpful. And I believe they weave in more like weightlifting terminology into the English dub, which is nice. It's one of those things where the Japanese dialogue doesn't necessarily have those terms, right? The Japanese language hasn't necessarily adopted the same terminology, so the English dub, gives us the English equivalent of that, right? Where you're not going to have those terms, but those are the terms that those characters would use in that situation, which is cool. Yeah, oh, totally. Yeah, I will probably at some point. I, I have not committed to this yet. I want to know what you guys think about this. Something I've been thinking about because again, I've been aiming towards simplicity, towards minimalism. As I've been pulling things down, things are getting simpler and simpler around here. Um, I've been thinking about going to my Mal and deleting my entire on hold list. And deleting all of my, I want to watch this in the future lists and all of my queues, and just resetting. And obviously, that won't erase my mind, right? There'll still be things I want to watch. And I'll see them and go, oh yeah, I want to watch that. But to not have it in the back of my mind as something, on the list, I think might actually be helpful. Right? There's a sort of clear the mental space. And then I think I would be able to approach anime I haven't watched more objectively. Instead of thinking, oh, is this on my list or not? Should I put it on my list? It's just an anime I haven't seen before. Yu Yu Hakusho, I cannot, I don't know, I haven't seen or watched or read enough of that to say one way or the other. I would say go with the gut. I would say try a little bit of each. Watch a few episodes of the anime, read a volume of the manga. If you like one more than the other, go down that route. And again, I don't know what better means anyway. Yeah, no, that's the thing is I would have to really wipe them. Not keep it back up because then if I keep it back up, why did I wipe them again in the first place, right? Like they're still there. It's still there in the back of my mind. Um, that's the thing, JJ. Exactly, is that my hold list has become this giant, and I don't think my Mal list is massive. I'm not sure, but ultimately a hold list of more than a handful of series is something I'm not actually using, right? I'm probably not gonna get to the 28th thing on that list. More enjoyable, yeah. And again, unfortunately I haven't watched enough Yu Yu Hakusho to know which one is more enjoyable. So unfortunately I can't help you there, but I'd say try each one, right? Nothing wrong with that. Because ultimately, I only have so much capacity. I think we all only have so much capacity, only so many hours in the day to watch anime. And so I think keeping a list of anime that realistically, if you went through that list, it would take you months, isn't realistic. It isn't effective. You're not actually going to get through that list. Or more accurately, you're going to keep adding to that list, during those months that you're watching it, even if you do make progress on it. And it's just going to go longer and longer and longer. People that watch at 2 times speed, I don't get that at all. Nothing against them, right? If you want to do that, that's fine. But for me, that gets the kind of creator's intent. And I don't think everything has to be creator's intent, but to me, that's kind of like watching a Marvel movie with your eyes closed, right? So you're just hearing the dialogue and you understand what's going on, but you're not distracted by the images, right? To me, speeding through, you're not really getting the thing. It changes the pacing. I don't understand that. Um, Now, I will say things like maybe Naruto, where, especially if you're speeding through episodes where you don't really care about, you want to know what happens. You don't really necessarily need to see what happens. I can see doing that sometimes. Um, yeah, yeah. Shonen just bores me to tears most of the time. personally. Yeah, yeah. I mean, certainly watching faster would move you through quicker, but then how much are you absorbing? I guess that's the thing. For me, when I'm watching anime, I want to be watching it in a way in which I can actually absorb it and remember it later on. Otherwise, it's just wasted time, right? Um, well, summaries aren't going to get you, the same. I think summaries are even further condensed, Seth, than actually watching it through 2x speed. Like you can see the reaction in the person's eyes. You can see you would glean more information going at 2x speed. Um, but still. All right, now Jay is trolling. Now we know Jay is trolling. Did y'all hear that? All right, I think we're good to go. See, personally, I disagree with that, JJ. I don't think that summary of Utena. I think that summary of Utena gives you 5% of the show, right? I think seeing how people react to things, seeing the way the camera moves in a shot, I think that is as relevant as in this scene, this character says that, personally. Well, I don't think anyone watches all the shonen genres religiously, though, Jay. Personally, I don't think it's actually a thing. Some folks do, obviously. Again, I haven't seen enough Naruto to say, and man, go with your gut. But I would not go through comics on issues. Go through trade paperbacks. Issues suck. Just go digital. Heck, just read all of Sandman. That's what I do. Okay. Oh, dang it. 1 second. Because yeah, I totally agree. I would not want to do comics, especially American comics, on issues. Oh, my thing is crooked. I built a new thing for my thing, and it's crooked. Oh well. Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm sure there are people who do, but I don't think most people keep up with all the shonen series. I think that is a very small percentage of the fandom. Never got a manga suggestion though. Fair. And you may just not be an American comics person, right? It's just that medium may just not appeal to you, and that's fine. I went through an American comic phase, but I'm not really into that stuff myself. Well, I gotta say, if you're disappointed with Sandman, I don't think American comics are for you. Then I would. I think there's your defining line, right? I think there you go. I do love Sandman, but it is its own thing. Okay. Hello and welcome to the latest anime news for the week ending May 16th, 2020. The long teased announcement of Jun Maeda's next anime project has come this week. Huzzah! Key, Aniplex, and PAWorks held a live stream presentation this week to announce their new anime project titled The Day I Became a God. Pretty good title. The original TV series will premiere this October. The anime will be animated at PAWorks. Maeda is credited with the original work and as screenwriter for this series. Very exciting. Naga is returning from many other key and visual arts projects as original character designer. PAWorks noted on Twitter that since the project has already been in development for some time, the audio is pre-recorded. Presumably that means the project won't face the delays that are so widespread right now, at least in the voice acting department. But who knows? I think we can safely say that based on that. The promotional video for the series mentions 2010's Angel Beats and 2015's Charlotte, then reads, quote, 2020, the hands of time are set in motion again. What comes next is the origin point for a return trip. Jun Maeda returns to the starting point, end quote. Huh. The website for the project gives a brief teaser for the story. Hina, who awakened as a god, she foresaw the end of the world. She chooses a lone young man who, as her companion, will spend his time with her until the very end. So it sounds like it'll probably be just as cheery as previous Maeda works. Great. A special prologue program will air on Tokyo MX on May 24th, so this week, and will reveal more information for the anime, so new details will undoubtedly be coming soon, and this is big enough news that I'm sure we will be following that. If you're looking for something a little less emotional and a little more physical, this week's second anime announcement should help. Shueisha announced on Tuesday that Kotaro Shono's World's End Harem sci-fi harem manga is inspiring a television anime. The new series is set to premiere sometime in 2021. The announcement comes in celebration of the manga's 4-year anniversary. It launched back in May 2016 on Shueisha's Shonen Jump Plus website and app. It's also already inspired 2 spin-off manga series, one set in a fantasy setting which debuted in 2018, and a spin-off of the spin-off which will launch next week. So they're clearly pushing this one pretty hard. Apparently, the theme of this series is pretty popular, and you'll probably understand why with a synopsis of the story. The manga is set in a world where the lethal man-killer virus has eradicated 99.9% of the world's male population. Protagonist Reito has been in cryogenic sleep for 5 years and left behind the girl of his dreams. When he wakes, he finds he is now the planet's most valuable resource, a man. Reito and the last 4 other men are given lives of luxury with only one job: repopulate the planet. You can probably figure out exactly what that demands in a world with 5 men and millions of women. All Reito wants, however, is to find his one true love. Aw, poor guy. If you're curious how this tragic story will turn out, which I'm sure is the main reason anyone would be interested, look forward to further updates or check out the manga, which is out there. I've actually come across and heard of this one before, so it definitely has some interest there, and some popularity. Meanwhile, Toshio Suzuki, producer at Studio Ghibli, held a video chat with Entertainment Weekly this week to discuss the progress of the upcoming films. The good news is that the sweeping delays and hiatuses due to COVID-19 have not affected Ghibli Films' production. Hayao Miyazaki's new film is still quite a ways off. Suzuki commented, quote, "We are still hand-drawing everything, but it takes us more time to complete a film because we're drawing more frames. So there are more drawings to draw than before," end quote. He remembers that when creating My Neighbor Totoro in 1988, they had only 8 animators and completed the film in 8 months. The upcoming How Do You Live is being worked on by 60 animators, but only completes about 1 minute of animation per month. Must be a lot of frames. Since the film's been in production since 2017, about 36 minutes have been completed so far. Suzuki stated that they hope to complete the film, quote, "in the next 3 years," end quote. Yeah. He also commented about the discussion he had with Miyazaki when he decided to make another film after announcing his retirement back in 2013, which was his, 6th retirement? Quote, "When Miyazaki came back and said that I want to make a film again, I actually said that's not a great idea because he's achieved so much already. You can't come back and do something that you've already done in the past. You have to do something different." One of the ideas that came out from that was, why not spend more time and spend more money? So that's one of the new approaches, end quote. Sounds like we'll have to patiently wait to find out what all that extra time and money will add, if it ever actually gets done. Satoshi Kon, anyone? The studio's second film in production, as announced back in January, comes from Hayao Miyazaki's son, Goro Miyazaki. Suzuki said that this film will be entirely done by computer-generated animation, much like Ronya, the robber's daughter, and he couldn't reveal any more details yet. He did, however, give a teaser as to the story's source material. Quote, Goro's film is based on a book or story from England, and it's a story about a very wise girl, end quote. As the coronavirus shutdown continues canceling events around the world, we hear news of more and more successful online events taking their place. In place of the 98th Comiket Dojinshi Convention, an online Air Comiket live stream was held this past weekend. The stream accumulated a total of 443,000 views across its 4-day run. The Air Comiket hashtag was used by more than 280,000 unique accounts on Twitter. The event was part of the broader Ganbaro Dojin initiative, which signal boosts Dojin creators that were originally listed in the Comiket 98 catalog. The physical catalog for the event was still sold, and fans were encouraged that purchasing the catalog will help support future Comiket events. Physical books by the featured creators were printed and sold through e-commerce sites, and these were highlighted on the live stream. Comiket catalogs are traditionally very sought after in general anyway. Hajime Okada, who's worked in the printing business for nearly 30 years, told NHK that the Air Comiket event greatly boosted their struggling livelihood. Okada said, quote, printing itself has been on the decline. When Comiket was canceled, we were in despair since it couldn't have come at worse timing. Even though the event didn't happen, I'm grateful that there was a movement to print books. Of course, it can't compare to a real-life event, but the orders have been coming in daily without fizzling out, end quote. So that's definitely good news. Even as the whole world is disrupted, it is a relief to see people finding new ways to continue moving forward. Just feel good story. Speaking of online events, 2 more upcoming events have been announced this week, including this one. UK anime distributor Anime Limited announced this week that it will hold its first Cloud Matsuri event on its YouTube channel on May 30th and 31st. The event is also partnering with Crunchyroll, Atsuko, Manga Entertainment, and Koei Tecmo Europe. The stream will host interviews and talks with 4 featured guests: Science Saru producer Unyong Choi, Studio Orange founder Eiji Inamoto, Polygon Pictures president Shuzo Shiota, and Groundworks company CEO Yasuhiro Kamimura. On both days, the events will run from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time, so those are some pretty long interviews. Kidding. Another little convention you might have heard of has also announced an online event this week. San Diego Comic-Con revealed on Twitter that they'll be holding Comic-Con at home sometime over the summer. The announcement video lists some of the great features of the event and indeed of all online events, including free parking, comfy chairs, and no lines. Which is true. Now, we haven't been covering every delayed anime or manga in the weekly news, as it would take up the whole stream and then some. But this week brought a couple of delays that really illustrate how unprecedented the current state of the world is. Both the longest-running manga anime series and the longest-running manga announced hiatuses this week. The Sazai-san anime, which has only delayed episode airings one other time since it began in 1969, and the Golgo 13 manga, which has never been delayed in its entire 52-year history, are both delaying new installments until further notice. Sazai-san previously delayed new episode production for only 1 month back in 1975, when the first oil shock led to a sharp rise in production costs. This time, no delay length has been specified, and the show will rebroadcast past episodes until staff has decided production is safe again. Fortunately, they have a lot of past episodes to show. The Golgo 13 manga has been running in the monthly Big Comic magazine since October 1968, but this is the first time it will ever go on hiatus. The staff stated in the official announcement that they had quote, done everything possible to bring the new book to you, our readers, end quote, but were finally forced to conclude that, working together directly was too unsafe to continue. They concluded, quote, in order to continue to deliver Golgo 13 to our readers, the presence of staff is essential, and we made this decision in consideration of the safety of those staff members, end quote. And yes, it's the same mangaka working, heading that all the way through. Manga creator Takao Saito, in fact, released a statement saying that, quote, not to lose to the coronavirus, we've already started to prepare for chapter 600, end quote. Here's hoping these two classics, as well as all the other anime and manga, can continue moving forward soon. Over the last weeks and months, many anime and manga have been pitching in to provide free entertainment to all of us stuck at home. This week, a favorite game is joining in as well. Starting this week, Manga Gamer has set up the Hinamezawa Virus Bundle, which offers the first chapter of Higurashi When They Cry for free on Steam, as well as steep discounts on the early chapters of the game. Chapters 2 through 4 are available for 75% off until July 14th, and Chapter 1 will be available for free, they say, until the discovery of a COVID-19 vaccine. There's no telling when that will be yet, but let's hope it's sometime in the near future, even if that means we'll only have a limited time to get Higurashi for free. But still, that'll be a good thing. Manga Gamer's release of the visual novel includes both Japanese and English text, as well as the choices between the game's original sprites or the redesigned versions. The original creator has said he's not a great artist. So if you've been looking to replay a favorite game or get into it before the new anime adaptation, now is the pretty perfect time. You can't beat free. Now, in Eden of the East, a group of elites is recruited to save the world by the mysterious Mr. Outside. According to a new website that opened this week, Mr. Outside has now decided to extend group membership to everyone in the world. And let's face it, the world could use some saving right now. Participants won't get a special cell phone or a bunch of money like the show's original Seleção, but visitors to the site will be granted their own unique Seleção ID number, as well as tips on staying healthy and happy during lockdown. The site also contains Twitter accounts for various series characters and special bonuses that will be unlocked as more fans access the site and engage with characters on Twitter. So far, only a sneak peek has been provided for some specialized downloadable wallpapers. Hopefully, the site will provide some fun and some encouragement for Eden of the East fans, and maybe serve as a good reminder that, it really is up to all of us to save the world, or at least do what we can to help. That's it for the news this week. Thanks for watching. Cool. Just scrolling back up. Yeah. Here. Well, it's interesting. We haven't. What's the last true harem series we've had? Going back to the harem story, we've had series with harem elements. Like SAO kind of has a harem-esque. There are multiple girls in it, but it's really not a harem series. I can't think of the most recent harem anime. I guess we never learn. Quintessential Quintuplets, that's harem, definitely. How well did Quintessential Quintuplets do? I've noticed it popping up here and there. Right Stuff is selling the DVDs and such, but don't have a good sense of that. Marvel DC says print media sales are up. Interesting. Um, yeah, as I've seen, manga sales right now are pretty much as they were, but that's because everything's, all the manga that is coming out now, was prepped months before now, right? So it's the stuff that they were, there's like a 6 month, 8 month lead time. So it's the stuff from like summer that's being affected. There's a thing on the floor of my right shoulder. Thing on the floor of my right shoulder. Um, that? That's just cables. It's literally an extension cable. Princess Connect Redive. True. That you're right. That is the one. Um, Seleção is Portuguese selection. Yeah, it's the main characters in Eden of the East are literally selected to be members of this elite group that can kind of change the world. So it is they just wanted to say, special elite group, but use a foreign word, so they chose Seleção. Good to hear it's Portuguese. The sheet of wood maybe in paint can? Sheet of wood and paint can. Sheet of wood and paint can. I don't see a sheet of wood and paint can behind me. There is a nope, wrong way. There's a paint can down there, but that's actually it's polyurethane, technically. That is yeah, 8th Sun. You're right. Totally harem. I'm polyurethaning a vegetable holder that I built and a wooden tray that goes on top of a bathtub. So that's that. In terms of other things around, I mean, I've got a bunch of stuff behind me. That's all tools from the tool chest, the tool rack. Okay. Yeah, that's what that is. Yeah, I've just got some polyurethane. I was doing some polyurethaning in here on this brown tarp, and shortly before the live stream, sort of moved everything into the other room, so I wouldn't be sitting here with polyurethane fumes, in my head for 2 hours. Plus on Lone Wolf and Cub, I honestly could not get into Lone Wolf and Cub. I have a friend gave me a couple of volumes of it, and it was just too grim for my taste, just too grimdark for me personally. I have a pretty low tolerance for that kind of thing. Obviously, it works for some folks, but oh yeah, no, this is just a big brown tarp. That's all that is. And unfortunately, it's got like drying polyurethane and stain on it, so I can't put it away just yet. But I probably should have done that. Yeah, there's a lot of like well-respected manga that I've read that just isn't for me. Crying Freeman. I actually read a good chunk of Crying Freeman and like appreciated it for what it was, but I was like, I would not pay for this. I got copies of it from a friend. Thanks, Game Escape. The woodworking has been fun. I would like to turn that into something anime related, but I haven't figured out what yet. But some kind of anime related woodworking thing I think would be fun. Tie all that stuff in. Heard of the manga of Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out? I have not. Tarot is Harem Elements too. Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of anime with like harem elements. To be honest, to be true, or to be fair. Yeah, I have a few other woodworking stuff that I'll probably show off in future Workshop Wednesdays. If I continue doing Workshop Wednesdays, that series might end. As I said before, this channel really should be more anime related, more anime focused. And I say that not because I strongly desire that as a human being, but because that is what YouTube demands. The algorithm wants channels to be focused and rewards that. Berserk. Yeah, I don't get Berserk either. I don't get the hype on Berserk either. One of my favorite moments as an early fan was going to Otakon. One of the early Otakons, 2003, I think, and I'd submitted an AMV to the AMV contest. I did not get into the contest. I just got into the overflow. So I went to the overflow showing that included my AMV, and it was only like 60 seconds long. And it showed, and it was fun. And there was a really good vibe in the AMV overflow room, because that is where that has basically two audiences. Everyone else who makes AMVs that didn't make it into the main contest. So we're all enthusiastic about AMVs and such, and the people who want to see every AMV ever made, right? Who just want to see AMVs. That's all they want to do. So they will go to the overflow room, if that's how that works. There was a actually, I may be wrong on this. Hold on, I gotta look up Berserk. Maybe because I want to make sure I'm referencing the right thing. I need to look at images and make sure it's the same one. I'm pretty sure it's Berserk. Because there's a scene in Berserk. There's a Berserk AMV, and he's just chopping through all of these like demons, and there's just blood everywhere. Like, he's spattered with blood, they're spattered with blood. He swings the sword, blood goes everywhere, and it's just blood, blood, blood. And I was raised on Mystery Science Theater 3000. Like, that is one of the formational comedy things for me. And riffing something you got to be careful with, because there are times when you can riff something and everyone will laugh, and sometimes when it's just inappropriate, when folks don't want to hear that. And so we threw that in there, and so so that came out. We were watching all of this, and there's this moment, and I just yelled out, "Not enough blood!" And just everyone laughed. And I wasn't the only one throwing out jokes, but just seeing all of this blood going everywhere, everyone was like, "Yeah, that's pretty much, that's what we're seeing right now." So I was like, those all that riffing time paid off that one time. Everyone kind of got it at that point. I've tried the live streaming function on Discord. I have. To some extent. There is a viewer limit, I think 10. I think you can only do 10 at once on Discord stuff. I'm sorry, no wait, you're talking about the live streaming function on Discord itself for the watch parties. I've not tried that. For that. That's a good thought. I will dig into that. We'll see. Bludgeoning Angel Dekoro-chan. That's a show. That is a show. That's actually another example of a show that I could not get into. I get the humor. I could. It's weird when you watch something and you're like, I parse the comedy here. I should be laughing, but for some reason the jokes aren't landing for me. I don't understand why. I think probably because we would always on Discord at the same time bog things down. Probably not. Discord is very, very used to handling lots of people. I couldn't help but imagine a show where a guy has a club and he's constantly murdering a girl, and whether I'd find that funny. And I just, I couldn't get that out of my head for some reason. And it's probably not like a reasonable, analogy for it, but it just, that came into my brain and I couldn't unsee that, right? And yes, you're absolutely right, Lord Admiral, it is very, and charming. It's very self-aware otaku cringy. It is playing off of, Hammer Space and a lot of otaku things. It is absolutely that. I guess part of the problem is I've never been into the tsundere thing. I don't like tsundere stuff. In the sense, I usually don't fall for the tsundere girl. But that is one of those things where, yeah, we didn't. I think that's the thing. Charming sketches. I think it's one of those things where um, it's funny because it is so meta, right? Because it is playing off of the tsundere abuse cycle idea thing to the nth degree. Um, yeah. Um, I don't know. It's one of those things that it's weird. It's weird. How many anime there make fun of otaku culture? A good handful. There's a fair amount. I mean, Haruhi Suzumiya, does it, definitely. Lucky Star does it, and there's shows that have jokes, about otaku things, right? Where they reference otaku stuff occasionally, but it's not sort of central as well. Yeah, cringe humor too is very. I can get cringe humor sometimes, but it's very hit and miss for me. I think cringe humor is really tough to pull off, or more accurately, cringe humor will only hit with some people, right? It's not just an acquired taste. It is, you either get it or you don't. You either laugh out loud or you don't. No matter how you look at it, it's your guy's fault I'm not popular. Wotakoi, I think. I love that, and that is very much cringy otaku humor, but because it's more, it's more personality otaku humor, right? It's we don't like interacting with human people, as opposed to like constant otaku jokes, right? So I think that landed for me better, but I can totally see why folks just don't get that thing. I love the Office British version particularly. I'm a huge. I was blown away by the British Office. The American version is very well done. Very. I get it, but again, I think to that extent, it is sort of that weird cringy humor. The reason that the British Office worked for me so well, I think, was because the characters were so extreme, whereas the American characters were a little more realistic. Obviously, they were over the top, but David Brent is a cartoon of a character, and I think honestly, Steve Carell is too good of an actor, to make that character just too cartoony. So that was the thing, right? It was two different. Both of those were different takes on it, and I understand why they did both. And I don't think the British version of The Office would play well in America, on network television. I think because it is a little bit too weird. It's like the IT crowd. I love the original, the UK IT crowd, but it's very, it's very out there, right? Yeah. And The Office is, again, it is a very particular kind of humor. It is kind of waiting for the joke. It is not. It is sort of a lot of it is sort of a comedian's comedy, where it is somebody doesn't tell a joke, and because there's no punchline, that's the joke. You're supposed to find that funny, which some people find fascinating, but not everyone does. So yeah, I think there's it's tough. There's and comedy's hard. Comedy is something that is not universal. Weird. Happy Sugar Life. I watched the first episode and turned it off. I am not into that kind of thing. I am not interested in that kind of show. But welcome, Krishan. And again, I'm not saying it's a bad show, but that approach to storytelling just turns me off completely, unfortunately. Like a lot of things, like there's some genres that just don't appeal to me, and that's fine. We're all different. Edward Crying Freeman, Gunsmith Cats, Gunslinger Girl. Be very careful about Gunsmith Cats. Kenichi Sonoda is kind of a lolicon, and it shows in Gunsmith Cats. There are some scenes in Gunsmith Cats where I was like, I'm very uncomfortable with this. Gunslinger Girl also has. So I haven't read read Gunslinger Girls, but what I've read of it indicates that it gets uncomfortable at times, but not as bad as Gunsmith Cats. There's bits of Gunsmith Cats that's just really problematic. Now the art, Sonoda's art and the action in it are all just stuff I would read again and again. Like I love everything, pretty much everything about Gunsmith Cats except for that stuff, and it's just so creepy. I can't, I can't look beyond it because it is so frequent. Like every volume has something like that in it, and it's just like, just be aware of that. Haven't read Knights of the Zodiac again. Shonen, not my thing. Flame of Recca. Mushishi's pretty cool. I've read chunks of Mushishi. If you've seen the anime, that is the manga. Like the anime is meant to be a pretty much panel by panel recreation of the manga. For what that's worth, whether that makes you do or don't want to read the manga. But like that it's very much that. Yeah, Gunsmith Cats would make a great TV series, especially considering how they did the OVA and how they cut all that stuff out of the OVA. Not so much in writing Bean, but I'd love to see the approach they made in the Gunsmith Cats OVA done to a TV series. That would just be fantastic. I'm surprised Mushishi is expensive to get. I'm just looking it up now. It looks like it's almost all available digitally. Just volume 4 paperback, $9. Volume 3 paperback, $8. Are you sure it's hard to find? Looks like some of the physical copies are hard to find, but the digital's easy to get. So give that a try. Oh well, yeah, physical is a whole other thing. That you're gonna have a really tough time for the rest of your life if you're physical only. Unfortunately. The trend of manga in general is digital, for lots of very obvious reasons. Putting out manga physically just it makes less and less sense over time. So yeah, I would, if you want to get them, I would go digital on that. I would make the sacrifice. Yeah, and that is the nature. I mean, Phoenix. I think I'm still missing several volumes of Phoenix, because it came out once, and you can't get copies of those for less than $80 per volume. And so I had to get like 3 of those volumes digitally, right? Because they're just gone. Same thing with Buddha. I did get all of Buddha, but I only got some of it in hardback. Yeah, Phoenix is brilliant. Phoenix is one of the great works of the comic medium. But again, very limited release, and understandably, right? There are only a few people in America who are going to buy Phoenix. It's a very small market, and they knew it, and that's what they went for. Same thing with a lot of the Tezuka stuff, where they're like, we're not going to recoup our costs if we, print 1 million copies of these manga, but it will sell to these 10,000 people. So you gotta live with that. And if you want to read it, you gotta swallow your pride and either pay the money or just get it digitally, for better or worse. And again, I think that is going to be the direction moving forward. I think it just with screen readers getting so much better, and just the costs of physical and the risks of physical versus just doing it digitally. I think it's gonna make more and more sense for the publishers to just go full physical, or full digital on stuff, and we're seeing that already, right? That's just kind of it. One moment while I double check on something. Where's my thing? Um, I don't think we have time for that. Looking for Excel Saga Volume 26. Yeah, fair enough. Hey, Ross. Good to see you. Yeah, again, unfortunately I don't have any insight on Excel Saga and what's going on there. Oh yeah, the whole comedian stealing jokes. That's a very complicated topic, right? Um, there are a lot of well, man. Yep. Just try getting into anime cell collecting one of these days. You want to talk rare, you know. Um, um, there have never been serial experiments lane cells going for less than $100, and now they're like 500 and up. That is just the reality. Sadly. All right. Okay, let's see here. I was gonna try something here, but I'm just gonna throw this out here. First, I'm gonna sneeze. Excuse me. Wait, sneeze again. Ah. Have I ever mentioned that I hate having allergies? Even though apparently I don't have allergies, according to my allergist, it's very weird. Um, what do I think of Girly Air Force? I have not seen it. Haven't gotten to it yet. We need to do yeah, coronavirus. Thank you. Um, yeah, Happy Sugar Life was a Happy Sugar Life was big when it first came out. Like there was a lot of conversation and talk about it, but then I think it kind of the conversation died out. But I think a fair number of folks were at least exposed to it when it first came out. Let my video on Comic Girls. Thank you. That was a surprisingly fun, light little show with some occasional like character moments. Like I was impressed. I don't think it's a spoiler to say. I mean, Comic Girls is about girls who draw manga, and there's some actual character development in there, which is like, oh, thank you for being a lighthearted story about girls who draw manga and all the pressures of that. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and ask this. JJ, was there anything you wanted to talk about for the news? And we could fire that up for a little bit. I forgot to share that news document with you, but if there's anything you want to dive into, I'd be happy to bring you on. Normally we would handle this ahead of time, but I did not get a chance to check up on that. That was my fault. Yeah, exactly. When a fluffy show suddenly actually has some character development, and when it's not, and all of a sudden, everyone's, the main character's parents die, and there's huge drama, right? But where it's woven in nicely. So Due to technical difficulties, we will not be able to do that this week, but hopefully next time. I have been playing around more with the sci-fi show and having a green screen background and all that stuff, and I have tested that out, so I now know I can do a green screen show, but I'm not quite. I'm still figuring all that out. My favorite anime comedy, Astro Sentai Sunred. I don't think I've ever heard of Astro Sentai Sunred. I'll have to dig into that. I will tell you my favorite. This is tough. My favorite anime comedy is probably Kadocha. Astro Fighter Sunred. Parody of Sentai. My favorite Sentai parody is Super Sentai Akiha Ranger. Because, boy, there's a meta show if I've ever seen one. Have there been any ecchi anime manga that you believe have had good/great stories? Again, I don't know what good or great mean. But ecchi series that actually like go somewhere, plot wise. Sure. I mean, Tenchi Muyo. Right? That OVA's got nudity galore in episode 2 or 3. But man, does that OVA go places. And there's some etchiness, spread throughout in the various series. Enjoyable. Again, I don't, unfortunately, enjoyable is a very subjective term, right? I enjoy oranges, but other folks do not. I've not seen Captain Earth. Let me pull up and see here. This is actually this is a bugaboo of mine. Is that back in the day, ecchi was a spice put on top of existing anime series. Like you would have a sci-fi action series with ecchi elements. You would not have an ecchi anime. And unfortunately, we now have just ecchi anime. I think that just kind of, detracts from it. When that becomes the focus of the show. Let's see here. A lot of these I haven't seen again, so I can't say. And I haven't finished Interspecies Reviewers, so I'm not sure. Attendant Illusion. Wow. Yeah, I really haven't seen most of these actually, because again, Dumbbell. However those dumbbells you list, definitely an ecchi series. Less ecchi than the manga, but I think that was that definitely entertained me, and is entertaining, right? Negima, sure, yeah, I would. Again, I haven't seen much of Negima, bits and pieces here and there, but I would agree with that. Love Hina, probably too, right? It has etchiness, doesn't it? And of course, Akira, the classic ecchi anime. Van Dread, yeah, I haven't seen Van Dread. Ranma and Half, totally. Yeah, there's definitely etchiness in Ranma and Half. It's fairly light. I mean, it's every couple of episodes there'll be a character in a bath or accidental boob grab or something. But yeah. Don't have too much info on how cons can open now. Nothing on cons specifically. Will there be online and live con doings going forward that will allow the physical space to be smaller and then more online for content? Yeah, I think that's a great question, JJ. I think, unfortunately, cons are going to probably be pretty off limit for a while. I think until we go to full back to normal, I don't see how we can do traditional cons. There's just too many people in one place all rubbing shoulders. the dealer's room is just uh, disease vector central, sadly. Yeah, Rumiko Takahashi in general. Although Inuyasha doesn't have much etchiness in it, but that's probably the outlier, right? That's designed to be more of a shonen series. So yeah, I think most anything Rumiko Takahashi I would agree with there has its etchiness. Scrolling through some of the other ones, yeah, gosh. Um, some of these are basically, um, yeah, it's definitely etchy, almost to the point of being not just etchy. Crayon Shinchan is in my anime list's etchy thing, which is like, okay, technically, I guess. I should check out the Akiba Strip anime because I got like halfway through the video game and really enjoyed it. Um, and I'm curious how that anime evolved because the video game is surprisingly not etchy, not much etchy at all. Yeah, Steel Angel Kurumi is a good example of a show where there are etchy, um, uh, there's etchiness throughout, but it's definitely plot. Like it is that is a sci-fi battling androids show. Yeah, I think no physical cons for 2020 probably, unless things go back. Anime USA is still planning on going in the fall, so maybe late 2020 if things are back to normal by then. Do I read light novels? Yes, off and on. Um, I'm partway through a boogie pop novel right now, and I read a smattering of them. These are technically light novels, actually, the original Gundam novels. Um, but yeah, Cell Saga, Dirty Pair. Yeah, yeah. I mean, Dirty Pair more just they're wearing metal bikinis. They don't really, at least the anime of the Dirty Pair OVA, as I recall, doesn't have much like direct etchiness. Just they're wearing ridiculous outfits. Yeah, I guess Cells at Work would be there. Oh, nice. Yeah, no, I ended up buying a Kiba strip. Um, and yeah, I mean, that is a full visual novel. Like there is plot, there is development. You go and do stuff. And there's more than just visual novel stuff too. But like there are whole romance options for all the girls. Like it's full there. Um, yeah, I expect there'll be a well, and they've I watched a doctor react to Cells at Work episode one, and he revealed something. He revealed a his belief about the show, which is like, oh, that's an interesting potential plot development down the road. It's kind of implied from the structure of the series, and it's like, oh, I now think I know something about the body that Cells at Work is hosted in. That's interesting. Yeah, etchy totally sells, and it's why you'll see etchiness in a lot of series. Um, some bit of sex sells. Sex sells. Then there's Maze. Oh, Maze. Gosh. Talk about sex sells. Um, and the weird middle ground stuff with, you know, where it's fantasy violence and then nudity for two scenes. Okay. Um, Kill a Kill, sure, yep. I mean, that's definitely an etchy series. Am I into maid shows at all? I'm not like into maid shows, but I will watch maid shows. Like I don't really have a for or against on maid series. I liked what I saw of Hayate the Combat Butler, which has maids in it. Handmaid May, I love Handmaid May, because Handmaid May is a cute, sugary, sort of parody heavy series until the final episode when it punches you in the gut out of nowhere. Yeah. Well, Kill la Kill. I mean, deeper. Maids versus Butlers. But yeah, no, Kill la Kill is definitely a series where it is very ecchi in a way that it is meant to be there. And then you got stuff like not Soul Bianca, Agent Aika, where it is ecchi to a parodic level, specifically to make a point about echiness. You know, where Agent Aika is kind of a comment on ecchi in and of itself. Well, I'd say the tone of Kill la Kill is, I mean, um, I don't think ecchi is a matter of tone, though, is it? I'm not sure. Because I think the whole point of ecchi is that it can just be a spice on an existing show. Um, Whether that, and that show can kind of be any genre, right? Golden Boy, sure. Butlers. Oh, I'm well aware. I have a good friend who tried to convince me that Kill la Kill was like the deepest anime ever made, and I listened to the arguments and I'm like, like there's such a thing as overanalysis. I think. Um, Again, I'm not saying that Kill la Kill is vapid entertainment, but um, Amadabashi definitely has some in there. Um, oh yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't say that guy has an involved storyline. It definitely has a plot. Stuff happens. It is a long running action plot. I don't think it's particularly deep. It's not hard to follow what's going on in Agent Aika. But you certainly agree that there's stuff happening. But I'm saying that the panty shot stuff is very much clearly a commentary on panty shots. Um, yeah, the Amanabashi stuff is weird. Like just um, the whole thing of well, the running ecchi gag in Aburabashi, if you haven't seen it, is makes me a little uncomfortable. Right? Yeah, Manga Zone 23, Plastic Little, right, has it in there as well, where they're just, sudden breasts. It's like, oh, okay. Well, Gunbuster. Gunbuster absolutely has ecchi elements. Has some very ecchi moments, but it's definitely not a an ecchi series, nor is it particularly a light series. It's pretty dark and serious a fair amount of the time, especially past episode one. And episode one is one big parody, but CSF. Fuka, not familiar with it. I don't think. I don't think I've seen Fuka. Fairy Tale is also listed under ecchi, by the way. Fuka. Nope, haven't seen it. I like what I see of the art style. That definitely appeals to me. Gurren Lagann and ecchi mecha, certainly. Yep. Remember, Yoko Littner is 14 years old. Yeah, Kiss Sis. Well, okay, so Kiss Sis is definitely the show that is ecchi, right? There is no genre in Kiss Sis other than ecchi. I think that would be the canonical example of that, where there's just nothing else going on. Compared to, say, oh gosh, Pet Girl of Sakurasao, which starts ecchi, but then that kind of disappears as it becomes a show about growing up and creative work. It kind of starts with ecchi to pull you in, and then throws that to the side when the plot actually kicks off for the rest of the series. Shizuka, okay. I have not seen Shizuka, but I've seen like AMVs and such, so I have some sense of Shizuka. Um, yeah, Pet Girl was Pet Girl was a kind of a sleeper hit for me. I thought it would just be this light, fun series that would just be kind of okay, you know, etchy, dumb comedy, but it turned out to be surprisingly more than that. Not like, it is not a life changing anime, but it was a little more than it presented itself to be in the first episode, which was nice. Um, it's fine. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, JJ. Yeah, Kiss This is how close can we get to hentai without actually going there? I think it found the line, like it found the border. Its toes are on the border, and it is leaning over. Um, those anime shorts have explicit sex scenes. I'd call them hentai. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that particular format. But I think if it has explicit sex scenes, it's H. Um, Pretty much. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that format though. I haven't come across that before. I know there are, and we covered this in the news a couple of times. There've been a few series where they would produce like a non H and an H version of the same storyline. So it'd be a story with an obvious H element, and maybe one or two of those were adapted that way, where it was basically an H manga, and they were like, well, we'll just do an H version and then all ages, or a PG-13 version. Um, yeah. So maybe there was just some where like they did a web version of it where 5-minute stuff. Wednesday night, yeah. And I mean, you get stuff and like we talked about. You have beach episodes where an anime with otherwise no like real ecchi content, and then all of a sudden, okay, girls in bikinis for 20 minutes. Um, yeah, yeah. Well, when they okay, it's after 10, after 10:30. When they fall on his hands, that for me was the moment when it just kind of it leaned over the line and kissed this. Um, Oof, that is a scene. Did Aika acknowledge it was there, but parody and such? Not quite sure what your question is. Um, Practically certainly every scene, almost every shot of Aika includes a panty shot. It is just constant and ever present, to a point where it becomes kind of boring. So it is absolutely, the etchiness is there, and it is there so ubiquitously it cannot be seen as just an element of the series. It is clearly being inserted to such an absurd degree, that it is a commentary on panty shots. Yes, panty desensitization. Literally by the end of watching that series, I was tired of panty shots. Like I wanted them to stop doing panty shots. Um, um, that's a good question. Okay, I see what you're saying. In other words, the characters themselves, they do. There are some scenes in there where characters are like, you're wearing, these are ridiculous outfits, right? And characters are sneaking around in their underwear all the time, that kind of stuff. So there is, there is some commentary on it within the show, but not like a character pointing and saying, why am I seeing their panties all the time? Oh yeah, no, there would be alcohol poisoning, absolutely. Oh yeah, Cutie Honey. Absolutely, that's a great call out. Cutie Honey is absolutely ecchi, especially in the classic sense, but strongly ecchi. Like there are, well, I mean, there is echiness built into the premise, but then the episodes themselves usually have no etchiness in and of themselves. In the plot or the characters, or whatever. I mean, maybe an occasional like lewd comment or something, but other than that. Maybe Strike Witches? Maybe, yeah. Overflow. Haven't heard of Overflow. Interesting. Okay. Overflow. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I think that this is one of those series where they decided to do. Yeah, there we go. This is exactly what that is. There was uh, a censored TV version, then an uncensored H version. Yeah, why the hell you were here, teacher? Yeah, I saw like an episode of that. That's definitely there. Um, Teacher just keeps showing up in inopportune moments. Um, there's I talked about this at OnCon. There was today in class 5-2. Kyo no Go no Ni, I think, which isn't. I mean, it's not really ecchi, but it's about kids worrying that they are in ecchi situations, even though they're not like quite old enough to be aware of ecchi situations yet, but they're getting to that age. So they're trying to avoid any ecchi situations. Um, it kind of has that there. Then you get the weirdness of stuff like Azumanga Daioh, with whatever the male teacher's name, who's like the weird perv. Yeah, anime loves crossing them fine lines. Um, there's a joke in Azumanga. I'll see if I can find it because I have the manga. Yeah, there it is. Um, so one of those moments at a con where you're like, oh, that did not land correctly. Um, there it is. So one of the girls in Azumanga Daioh, Sakaki, is tall and kind of scary and so forth and so on. Um, that is the name of that series. Um, and she's just very reserved and quiet, and has this reputation for that. But she actually like loves animals and such. And so there's a thing in the manga where you see Sakaki, and it's not gonna. Let me redo that. Um, We're gonna fix that focus. So there's a scene where the girls are all changing into their gym uniforms, and there's Sakaki, and she's getting dressed, and they're all talking about how cool she is and all that kind of stuff. And then there's this image, and somebody goes, were those kitty panties she's wearing? Very much, cool, quiet, collected girl, and then very odd stylistic choice for her panties. In the anime, they're all changing, and they're having this dialogue, and then they basically show this as they're all changing, and then it's just them all looking shocked. So in other words, and so I was watching this at a con. They were watching it was the English dub, but I mean there was no. It would have been the same in the Japanese dub. And so it's all these characters talking about how cool she is, and then they cut to this shot of a cat, and you can think of certain synonyms for cat, and they all look shocked at what they just saw. And I'd read the manga before this moment, and I looked around. I realized everyone in the room was making a very different assumption about what Sakaki was showing everyone else. Because the English adapters decided not to include that explanation for the joke because, Japanese doesn't have that homonym, right? That other word for cat. So that was uncomfortable. That was unfortunate. I think a lot of folks got the wrong joke out of that scene. Sad. Thoughts on Sailor Moon? I'm not an 8-year-old girl. I kid. But Sailor Moon is not an anime series aimed at me, right? It is the things it is celebrating, the things that it is all about, are things that are not part of my part of my experience growing up or whatever, right? So, yeah. So I can't really debate Sailor Moon, right? Because it's one of those things where, like a lot of other things, either it speaks to you or it doesn't, and it doesn't speak to me, sadly. An audible oof when I said that, yeah. It's one of the reasons why I get kind of worked up about translation, because I'm like, you got to be careful in translation of being aware of those differences and work to those, and not allow your audience to make assumptions based on language that the original audience wouldn't make, right? Our minds jump to that assumption because of the way our language works. The Japanese audience would not, and you have to be aware of that stuff. Don't understand girls, you have to watch some of their shows. I don't know that that's true, necessarily. Yeah. Now, obviously, you don't have to be an 8-year-old girl to watch Sailor Moon, obviously. That's a joke, people. Free is definitely an anime aimed at 14-year-old girls, I'll say, maybe. Rather, some explain a Japanese joke rather than explaining the English jokes. But that's not what I'm talking about, though. I hear what you're saying. What I'm saying is that there are some things that come across as jokes in English that were not a joke originally. Right? There are parts of the language that just don't work the same way. And so you will get a new joke in English based on a simple translation of the Japanese that was not a joke originally, right? And that's the danger. Where suddenly there is new meaning where there was not before, and you have to kind of, explain that or talk about that. Nothing against Sailor Moon or Free, right? And to be clear, when I say, Free is an anime aimed at, made for 14-year-old girls, I'm not saying that only 14-year-old girls were made for it, right? I'm not saying that only 14-year-old girls can enjoy it. I'm not saying that, they only expected that. I'm saying the target demographic of that was clearly, like, teenage girls who wanted to see hot teenage guys. Lots of other folks can enjoy that stuff, right? Like, Dragon Ball Z is clearly made for, like, 10-year-old boys. But that doesn't mean that other folks can't watch it. NCIS is made for, 30-year-old, 40-year-old people, right? But teenagers can enjoy it. it's actually an interesting thing. I think that a lot of anime fans, like I think we understand this, but something that you see a lot of anime fans, and this is something I that get confused about, and I see it in my panels as well. People don't quite seem to understand that there's a difference between the sort of original target demographic for a show and the actual fan base, and that that's okay, right? That a show can be aimed at one fan base or one demographic and get other fans. Right? Digimon's actually a great example of where that is an anime series that was clearly aimed at like preteen kids, particularly boys, but girls as well, when it came out. And over time, they realized, oh, this those kids grew up on this, and now our primary fan base are the 30-year-olds who grew up watching that as kids. So yeah, My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, absolutely, right? And people get really upset when I tell them that that these series are aimed at kids or at teenagers. I'm like, that doesn't mean you can't like it, right? It doesn't mean that it can't speak to you. It just absolutely had a target demographic. But the Double Zeta things. Digimon Tamers, best Digimon. Well, Digimon Tamers is my favorite Digimon series. I believe it is. It is elevated above the rest. There are elements. I would. I would advocate for different Digimon series for different people. But for me, Digimon Tamers is the one that spoke to me most. I think it is the most complex, the most intricate. It has the most well-structured story in the sense that it clearly builds to an ending, and a kind of a multi-layered ending in a way the other series feel a little bit more distracted, or a little bit more straightforward. Yeah, and I think Tamers is the most mature Digimon series I've seen. I haven't seen like all of the more recent ones though. But yeah, I think Tamers was the one. Yeah. Never too late to start, JJ. You can start watching them now. I would actually advocate anyone try Digimon Tamers. Tamers is a show that you can watch without having any other exposure to Digimon. It is essentially a reboot. It is actually a kind of self-aware reboot. Digimon is an existing card franchise in the world of Digimon Tamers. Like Digimon exists as a thing in Digimon Tamers, so it's very interesting. Yeah, and go for it. Yeah, Chaka Kanaka was the head writer of Digimon Tamers, which probably explains why it spoke to me so strongly. But also, I mean, he is a very well respected. I mean, he's written a lot of stuff in anime. And he's done kids. I mean, he's done not just like Lane. He did a variety of things. So he was definitely skilled and definitely, good for that. What age is the cutoff for people who have never watched Pokemon? That's a good question. And I've never watched Pokemon. I've seen episodes of it, but I haven't I didn't grow up watching it. I haven't gone back and consumed hundreds of episodes of Pokemon. So I don't know. Cannot watch Yu-Gi-Oh! Me neither. I could watch Yu-Gi-Oh! But it just, it's a thing. Tamers on Crunchyroll. Interesting. Yeah, Tamers deserves respect because it does a lot. It has its issues, right? Like anything. So I may have said this before. So Chiaki Kanaka is a well-respected, well-known anime writer, but he was known for doing more serious stuff, and he just come off of Zero Experiment Lane when he was offered the chance to do Tamers, and he said Tamers was my chance to make a kid show. Not in the sense of a show just aimed at kids, but in the sense of like a Sesame Street, right? Like he knew the third season of Digimon would be seen by a wide swath of Japanese preteen children. And so he said I couldn't turn it down in a sense because it was my chance to make a show that kids would actually watch, right? Kids anime series are not necessarily watched by a lot of kids, and just man, that was an opportunity that he just could not pass up to really pass on his thoughts to the kids of Japan. And that is definitely what that is. True villains and Digimon are the Goggle manufacturers. I think the true winners of Digimon are the Goggle manufacturers, right? They're the ones that make all that stuff. What are all those wooden boards in the manga room, Brent? Do you mean these? That's what those are. These are the whiteboards. The mini whiteboards. Now stained. Content warning. That turned out really well. I'm very happy with that one. Goofiness warning. This is a beholder from original Dungeons and Dragons. That is what a beholder looked like. For those of you familiar with your D&D lore. Yeah. This is from the $250 laser engraver. But yeah, it turned out pretty well. And they're all dry in there. Yeah, sorry. News is over. True. Yeah, the Pokemon video games are definitely big. I mean, they've always been big. But they seem to be the main attack vector these days, especially in America. I think, certainly kids in America played Pokemon Red and Blue and all the others. But I feel like Pokemon fandom in America among kids has shifted more towards the video game than the anime series. The unfinished ones. That stuff. This is boring. The stuff on the one side it was going to be a bird feeder. So I'm using up a bunch of you may have remembered I had a whole stack of wood in the back. The stack of wood, some of which is hidden behind Rurouni Kenshin. And I've been working my way through that scrap wood over the past week, trying to finish out projects, and I'm almost done. And one of those projects was going to be a bird feeder, and I got partway into making it when I realized I don't want a bird feeder. I came up with the idea of doing a bird feeder because it's an obvious way of using up scrap wood. But then I got partway through and I was like, but what would I do with a bird feeder? Like, I don't want to go out and fill that with bird feed every day. I used to do that. I lived in a place that we had bird feeders, and I was responsible for that. So I've done it, and I know how much time it takes, and it's nice in its own way. Like, it's cool having the birds coming in and out. But I realized it's a responsibility I don't want. So I put that on hold. The other are going to be boxes for my paint supplies. So I have a bunch of oil paints and acrylic paints. That's a little painting I did back up there. There's another one over on the side. I've been playing around with landscape painting. And so I want to make little boxes but I say little boxes about this big that I can then put supplies in and stack up. So I can just pull out all my painting stuff and then paint. So JJ bring up an interesting point about those kids anime series. This would be worth maybe doing a video about. I do wonder about the utility of getting exposure to some of those shows, of watching 15 episodes of Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Digimon, and not necessarily like the first 15, but of getting enough exposure to it to be able to speak to it, to be able to talk to folks about, Ash Ketchum is always 10, right? I wonder what that is, right? I wonder what that level is, to have enough exposure to be able to talk to some of those big shows like Sailor Moon, like some of these other things where it's like, I'm not gonna watch all of Pokemon. I'm not gonna watch all of Sailor Moon, but I feel like I've watched enough episodes of Sailor Moon or Dragon Ball Z to be able to speak to its animation style, its plot style, that kind of stuff. But I wonder. Um, yeah, yeah. Thanks, Becca. Um, so maybe I'll make maybe I'll make something out of the boards for the bird feeder, but I'm holding off on it for now until I decide what to do. So yeah, so the boxes for birds, and I gotta say the thing is, now that I started staining things more often, I really like the idea of staining things. Like I really like having non-unfinished wood around. I think you guys will really like when the tool rack is stained next week. When you see that, I think you'll understand what I'm saying. Um, Interesting. Yeah, you can play Pokemon with. Yeah, it's Pokemon's weird. Pokemon has become a thing that a ubiquitous thing that like everyone plays Pokemon. It's passed out of like kid culture into adult culture in a way that other things have not in a real way. Um, no, you're absolutely right. I think people don't find it weird that people play Pokemon games, but they find other fandom of other kid stuff weird or other and not the Sailor Moon's aimed directly at kids, but it's weird. Um, yeah, that is weird, man. Um, I agree with you, Spin, in the sense that I find it cringy when anyone watches the same thing over and over at the expense of everything else, right? You know, when you're a fan of just one iteration of one thing, I think that can be um, uh, that can reflect poorly on you. In the same way that if somebody says, yeah, I eat or it's a good example. I read Catcher in the Rye every week, over and over and over, and I've done that for the past 5 years. You'd be like, that's odd. Why do you do that? Oh, I just like it. I just read it over and over again, right? I wouldn't, I wouldn't yell at the person for it, but I would find it strange. If you're not pulling new things out of it and you're just watching it because you watch it, because it's a thing that you like to watch over and over, I think, it is reasonable for people to find that unusual, right? So I think Russ, it would be different for um, it would be different, in 1997 when it was one of the few anime available, and then I think that it would be much more understandable if you're watching that thing over and over because it's the only thing you have um, available to you. Then yeah, I would agree that that's not too strange. But I think when there's a buffet and you only eat rice, right? It's like, I can understand why folks would find that would raise an eyebrow, right? Like again, not complain or anything. So yeah, and that's the thing is um, there's a certain um, I mean, again, it's like anything else. Well, so I think it's less. um, to get that analogy, it's not just if you only drink Coke, it's if the only beverage you ever consume is Coke, right? You never drink water, you never drink milk, you never drink coffee, you never drink hot chocolate. You only drink Coke all the time, for everything. Again, I think folks would find that a little unusual. Yeah, I don't know many people who literally, or somebody who says, you die. But somebody, I think the analogy a better analogy would be somebody who, eats burgers every meal, 3 times a day, for years, right? That would be something where it's like, really? That's unusual, right? I think that's more the analogy where it's like you're consuming this one thing over and over when there's so many other options available. But it's also that whole there's the attitude behind it, right? When folks are like, I watch Dragon Ball Z because it's the only thing I like. That's where it gets kind of, again, I wouldn't be directly judgy, but I'd be like, that's the only thing you like? Dragon Ball Z is the only show worth watching? That's where I would find it odd. When someone just watches that same thing over and over and over again because there's nothing else that would possibly appeal to them. It's like, have you tried? You're sure nothing else would appeal to you? That's what would be weird. So yeah. And again, there's a big difference between. Sorry. I happened to pause my video stream of this on me holding up the bottle of rum, so I'm just seeing that all the way. I was gonna say something about beer, but I have learned to never talk about alcohol online and what preferences are for alcohol because people will be offended whatever you say. There is no good opinion to have about alcohol because people will jump on you and say that your taste is wrong. So I'm staying out of that argument, that whole topic, because man, oh gosh. The movie I've rewatched the most, gosh, probably Star Wars, the original Star Wars. I've seen that a good number of times. Half a dozen, 10, 12 times maybe. Yeah, spin to it. That's the other thing. If you're only watching we live in an age of abundance. If you're only watching the same thing over and over again, you have to be actively deciding not to watch other things. Like you have options, right? You'd leave the stream if my taste was bad. I have bad news for you. My taste is bad. I have terrible taste in media. But yeah, I'm curious what other folks think. What other folks have seen most. What are some movies you watched over and over again? I rewatched a lot of stuff in my teen and young adult years. Not a lot these days. Favorite part of Star Wars? Gosh. Probably episode 4. I mean, episode 4 is a really well-constructed film. It's entertaining pretty much throughout. It builds to a climax. I think my favorite Star Wars movie is 6, Return of the Jedi, because it is a culmination, because it is all these plot threads weaving together. And I didn't find the Ewoks annoying, personally. I understand they are walking toys, and I kind of understood walking in or going in. So I don't never have a problem with that. So I could watch the sequence of the Ewoks sending the logs down and that ATST, falling over just over and over again. That was pretty cool. So ET in theaters when it was released 9 times. 9 times. Little Ferris Bueller for you there. Nice. Read any Star Wars comics 2015 to present? No, I have not. I have a fair amount of I consumed a fair amount of Star Wars content during the first the first few years after the drought was when I started consuming Star Wars content, but not much after that, unfortunately. Nothing against it. Again, it's just it is now. It's like all these franchises. Like, oh, there's way too much for me to ever catch up on. Third Pirates movie 8 times. Nice. I've watched Tron a lot. The original Tron movie I've watched many times. Nope, never read any of the comics. Never really into the American comics, frankly. Again, nothing against them. They just didn't really went anywhere. Times in theaters. Dang. I don't think there's any movie I've seen in theaters more than once. Gosh, interesting. Again, not intentionally. I don't go to the theaters that much. Yeah. Episode 7. Star Wars Episode 7 actually I did because I watched it in theaters myself and I took my parents and some friends to see it. Because I was like, you'll enjoy this. Like my parents, they watched Episode 4 when it came out in theaters, right? Like they were there for they told me the tales. They sat me down and said, "Oh, young fan, let us tell you of the times of 1977 and the release of Star Wars." And so they were like, "Here, this is what it was like." So they I took them to see Episode 7 because I was like, "You'll enjoy all this stuff," and they did. Leia's manga, cool. Did Ewoks spawn the trope of cute little hordes of creatures, minions, for example? I don't think it spawned the trope, but it definitely popularized it. I would say Gremlins might have been really more the thing. Gremlins is probably the tons of minions going around. Yeah, actually, and man, I totally agree with you. I didn't see the Ewoks as cute. I saw them as, cute in a broad sense of any sort of animalian creature can be cute. But they were there to be. I mean, they were the Vietnamese, right? That's what they were. So, for those confused about what I just said, the Ewok conflict was meant to be a metaphor for the Vietnam War, and a local technologically disadvantaged population winning against a technologically advanced invading military force. That was kind of George Lucas's thinking behind, or sort of inspiration behind Ewoks. So that's what they were there for, is to be the natives, if you will. And so I thought that they did fine for that. I mean, they worked as that. It was okay. Those are the prequels, parts 1, 2, and 3. So I have very different opinions on the prequels. Lucas has talked about that. Like, that's not speculation. He's come out and said that Vietnam War was, and that was originally the idea behind Star Wars Episode 4 was to tell that story, but it would be too expensive to do all that stuff, so we kind of pushed off to 6. Anyway, yeah, my take on the prequels are very different than most people's. Not sure why. I actually enjoyed episode one, but I saw episode one as a setup story. It is very much so. To understand Star Wars, particularly the George Lucas Star Wars, I think you one of the things that is key to understanding that is going back and watching Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers, right? Those Republic serials were one of the key inspirations behind Star Wars. And a lot of the structure, a lot of the ways those movies flow plot wise come out of those old serials. Then yeah, so you're right, Ed Man. Chewbacca's design was the original design for the Ewoks, and when they scrapped that, he kept Chewbacca as a character there. So Phantom Menace, I thought was a very Buck Rogers story. It is a big space adventure, kind of setting up a lot of the plot. And my problem is that, unfortunately, The Phantom Menace is basically episode 0. It is a prelude to the main plot. It is a setup of all the plot of the prequels. So, again, sort of from a plot perspective, it really should have been a lead-in to all the big stuff. Episode 2 has fun moments. It has fun elements. Obviously, the Jango Fett stuff is really cool and such. But it's a little unfocused, right? It has that awkward problems of being in episode 2. It's trying to bridge this gap between setup and then conclusion. It also has a problem that George Lucas did not realize until very late, that Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship is very rocky in that episode, in that movie. When we've seen them have a good relationship and then all of a sudden they're in this rocky relationship and you don't get that sense of transition. They're basically bickering throughout the entire movie, which doesn't make it very fun. So I understand so it has fun moments, and it does some interesting stuff, but I think a lot of the Geonosis stuff from a plot structure perspective feels awkwardly, it kind of progresses awkwardly. Episode 3 has a lot of problems for me, because episode 3, from two perspectives. One is that it's always hard to make a movie where your protagonist is the villain in a way that is entertaining in an action movie. When halfway through the movie, your protagonist kills children, it's tough to recover from that, right? And episode 3 also has the problem that we all know how it ends. Like, I remember, not to toot my own horn, but I remember after Return of the Jedi came out, reading up and hearing, and I knew in like 1987 that Darth Vader and Obi-Wan fought on a lava planet, and Vader lost his limbs, and or that fight was what turned Vader, half cyborg, or I guess cyborg. And that was kind of the backstory there. Like, that was known between episodes 6 and 1, so to speak. So we all knew how that was going to turn out, right? And then when you have a 45-minute action sequence where ultimately it's just trading blows back and forth until that happens, it's a duel, I got really bored with that sequence because there was nowhere for it to go. I'm an aficionado of Hong Kong action films, and in the best Hong Kong action films, every action sequence has to do one of two things. It has to further the plot by, having the bad guys come in and trash the good guys' factory, for example, or it has to reveal character, right? Somebody swoops in to save somebody else who's being, harassed or whatever. That final fight in episode 3 does neither of those things for a very, very, very long time. You also have the problem that, Anakin's actor, and I don't think this is all his fault. I think there's some direction issue in there, but he lacked chemistry with Amidala. And so I didn't buy this great love story. I just didn't believe that. It did not come across on film. There were little tiny hints of it here and there, but it just didn't come across. And that's really what it hinged on. It's really what the tragedy of that hinged on. The emotional weight of that hinged on that. And it just didn't hit. He comes across like a whiny jerk. So that didn't help. So when your final fight is just two people trading blows over and over and over again over a video game lava planet. I think direction and writing play a part. Like, the dialogue in that would be hard for anyone to deliver effectively. There's some very awkward writing in those movies. So I felt like the prequels kind of ground to a halt. And again, I by that I do not mean that the Phantom Menace was an ideal starting to that trilogy. Like it started on this giant high point. I felt like that was a big, fun, kind of open-ended, energetic kickoff. But then the later films didn't really weave all that together very effectively for me. So I don't mind the prequels. I don't think the prequels were bad. And I know that's a very controversial statement to make. I thought I thoroughly enjoyed the first one, but the second one was okay, but had some issues, and the third one was just had those fundamental structural and sort of character problems. But I didn't hate them. Right? They were just okay. They were mistakes were made, but they were fine. But you have the higher ground, which I don't buy, honestly. I don't think that being higher up than somebody who has a laser sword actually makes you like invulnerable to them. Anyway, episode 8 made me angry. Rogue One made me angry. But for completely different reasons, right? So, yeah. Part of the problem with the prequels is I don't. And actually, my reaction to 7 was similar to my reaction to episode 1, actually. Is I thought 7 was this really fun, big, adventure-y introduction to the plot of 8 and 9, and so it doesn't really go anywhere, and it's repeating some of the same stuff, and that's fine. It kind of had to satisfy the fans' fright. But I don't think... So I enjoyed it. It was fine, but it wasn't like the most amazing thing ever. 8... I haven't seen 9 yet. I don't think I'm going to, shake my fist at 9. I came across somebody who I respect who watched 9, and his description of it was, I went through the movie constantly thinking, I guess I can see why they went that direction in the script. And it's like, yeah, like I that's how I think I'm gonna react to episode 9, where it's like, okay, I guess, like you can do that, but it's not really all that, doesn't really come together. I don't know. Meeting Ray is episode 7. Rogue One made me angry. Because Rogue One undermines Luke Skywalker as the hero of the film. It makes Luke is no longer the hero of episodes 4, 5, and 6. It also contradicts episode 4 in the sense that the whole point of the fight between Darth Vader and we talked about this I think before, the whole point of the fight between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan in episode 4 is that these are two old men. Is that the Force is dying. Episode 4 is meant to set up the fact that because of Anakin's actions in the past, the Force is in this very difficult point where the only two left, really, are Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, right? Like, obviously, Yoda and the Emperor exist, but they're not really active in combat, right? They're not out there doing things in the world. These are the only two, Jedi and Sith really left active. And they're both these old men who can barely use their lightsabers anymore. And Rogue One says, no, actually Darth Vader's awesome. Like, he can just tear people apart. Until, like, the next day when he's fighting Obi-Wan and he's suddenly an old man again. And that just didn't fit very well for me. But yeah, Rogue One was basically, no, Luke Skywalker isn't important. Anyone could have blown up the Death Star. Doesn't matter. And that angered me. Right, but that's the problem. It's not that it helps episode 4. It makes Luke Skywalker an accident. Anyone could have done that. The Force was not really a factor. Was basically the point of Rogue One. Donnie Yen and Donnie Yen also angered me. Donnie Yen is amazing. Donnie Yen did a fantastic job in that movie. Donnie Yen was one of my favorite parts of that movie, and he dies practically off screen. He just dies and we move on. And he was this really interesting character that they seem to be doing some interesting stuff with, and then they just kind of drop him and move on, and it just felt really awkward. Well, they should have fixed that in the movie, not in the comics. Right? In my opinion. Also, so this is just my opinion. I believe that a franchise should have certain fundamentals to it. There should be kind of pillars of a franchise. You can go in lots of different weird directions, but there's a point where you have gone so far off the reservation that you don't really feel like you're part of the franchise anymore. You can still use the same characters, but you've kind of, you've lost your way, right? And I feel the ending of Rogue One was not an appropriate ending for a Star Wars movie. I don't think you end a Flash Gordon story with the ending of Rogue One. It felt too, just what they did to the protagonists in the end of Rogue One, and I'll just leave it there, felt like just the wrong tone for Star Wars. Yeah, I don't like it when a movie is and this is one of the problems I had with episode 8, and I won't get into episode 8 in detail, but I really feel like episodes 7 and 8 are basically deconstructing episodes 4, 5, and 6 and kind of taking the magic out of the classic characters and basically saying, yeah, they can all just be unimportant or die off or do whatever, and like it's good that they were there, but they're not really important. And it just feels weird. It feels awkward. And again, I don't mind franchises killing off old characters. I don't mind franchises moving on. But that's not the hero's journey, right? Star Wars is very much built on mythic tropes. It's very much built on a clear classic structure. And Rogue One, Episode 7 and 8, 8 particularly, felt like they were very much undoing that mythic structure. And that's really where I got frustrated. I hear that. I mean, I have heard people argue that Vader is basically toying with Obi-Wan in that scene, but I don't see that in that scene. The body language of Vader in that scene is that he is feeble, and George Lucas has said, and again, creator's intent, whatever, but George Lucas has said that the intent of that scene was to contrast skilled Jedi with old feeble Jedi. That and one of the ideas behind the prequels was to show this is what Jedi look like when they're awesome, right? And indeed, you see that in Empire and Jedi. Vader fights conservatively. Luke has this dynamism. He's jumping around in the Empire, in the Emperor's throne room. You know, he's leaping above, all that kind of stuff. Vader is not doing that. And he just doesn't have any of the intensity or the strength that you see in the Rogue One scene. And that's what I found weird. That Vader kicks ass in Rogue One in a way that he never does in 4, 5, and 6. And it felt like they were saying, we want Vader to be awesome regardless of continuity, right? And so it's not a big thing, but it's something that just felt weird. If any other pilot flew down the trench because they've done what Luke did. Yes, because they almost did. Right? One pilot did, peck it on the surface. One pilot nearly hit it. So yes, it was clearly it was possible. The point in 4 is that the original point of 4 is that Luke could do it because he had the Force. But Rogue One says no, as long as you got, and more importantly, again, Rogue One specifically says the Death Star is meant to blow up. As long as you get reasonably close to this, as long as you manage this thing, anyone can do it. All you need to do is get a snub fighter down there and fire and get it in there. Right? The original designer was saying any fighter pilot can do this. You don't need the Force to do it. Nothing in Rogue, if that designer was saying, okay, yes, I designed this thing, but it's going to be really hard. But no, he says no. No, he did get killed, but he nearly got it, right? The whole point is the question wasn't whether, the question isn't, could you have hit it and survived? The question is, could you have hit it? And he got, right within it. And again, the original designer said, all you got to do is get a torpedo down there. He never says, as long as you have the Force, right? But yeah, exactly, JJ. The old canon gets in the way of making the journey go on forever. But that's the other weird thing, is I don't understand why you have to do what they've done to the old characters to tell new stories. Just ignore them. Right? Tell stories with your characters. You don't have to address the old characters all the time. I was perfectly happy in episode 7 with Rey and Finn and Poe. Like, tell stories of those characters. Great. We're good. Vader's not the issue. Vader tailing them was another threat. But again, Rogue One explicitly sets up in dialogue that anyone can do it. Any fighter pilot can do it. That's my frustration with it, personally. Yeah, it's an interesting way of looking at it, Matt. Is that they have reworked so many things now that episode 4 is nothing is not really creator's intent anymore in a weird way. Yeah. And here's the thing: you go back to anime and manga, right? You can absolutely tell a new story and reference the existing characters, bring them in, have them come along, but they don't have this doesn't have to tie into those old. You don't have to say you don't have to tell a Skywalker story in episodes 7, 8, and 9. Just like episodes 1, 2, and 3 weren't about Luke Skywalker, right? They were about other characters that then shows up in episodes 4, 5, and 6, and that's fine. So have those characters show up in 7, 8, and 9, but tell the stories about new characters and just have, things weave in with those old characters. It's just strange. So yeah, I don't, again, if I were doing it, I would say, here are my new characters. Obi-Wan will or not Obi-Wan, Han Solo will show up. People will talk about Luke Skywalker. All sorts of stuff. What I really wanted to see, there's a great video where Mark Hamill talks about what he expected episode 7 to be, how expected it to end, and I love his ending, actually. I would love if, even if you had the same ending as episode 7 did, episode 8 started with Luke saying, nope, go, leave. And resolve all of that stuff in the first 5 minutes of that movie. And just have Luke say, no, this is, I'm done. I'm over. I cannot teach you. I will not teach you. And have her come to that realization an hour and a half early, however long it took. And then Luke can be this sort of question mark out there. And then just go on. Right? I just don't see why they have why they decided to do this. And I think, unfortunately, Star Wars has the disadvantage of its fan base. I think the Star Wars fan base, I think the creators fear its fan base, and they don't want to upset that fan base, and so they're trying to walk this careful line between making sure that all this stuff is there, right? But if it's me, you do Zeta Gundam. You do a series where old characters come in, but this is a story about new characters. Okay, thanks, Becca. Yeah, I should probably end this here pretty soon because we are way over time. It's funny, earlier this evening as I was finishing up these projects and laying down for a while and kind of recovering from this week, I was thinking about tonight and thinking, man, I'm going to do the stream tonight, but this may be like a 20-minute stream. Like I may come in and say, okay, let's do the news, let's do this thing, let's talk a little bit, but I just don't know if I'll have the energy. 3 hours later, we're still having a great conversation. It's funny how that always works out. Thank you, N-Man. I agree with you, Spin. I do agree with you, Spin, on that, though. I do think that was, my thoughts around that are complicated. I have to think about that. There are some interesting, I think you can kind of see how Rian Johnson, I agree that his approach to episode 8 was kind of weirdly, let's just put a stick of dynamite in the middle of Star Wars and blow everything up. But I think, largely, so maybe it's more that J.J. Abrams is scared of the fan base, as opposed to Rian Johnson, perhaps. Anyway, but yes, JJ, I'm afraid I do not have the mental capacity to side tube tonight, and I do not have Utena queued up. I completely forgot to do that. So we will have to hold off on that. Apologies. But sorry about that. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go in and go to sleep. Like pretty much right now. But yeah, and there goes the throat. So yeah, hopefully Utena next week, or maybe we'll do something else. We'll start something else. We'll figure it out. But yes, thank you all very much. This has been a great conversation as always. Hope you all have a great week. Hope you are able to find some centeredness, some peace in all this. And until next time, as always, watch more anime.